Hello everyone. Today we are going to start macroeconomics, chapter 10, government budget and the economy. The chapter is very important from exam viewpoint as the weightage of this chapter is of 6 marks. Not only from exam viewpoint, but the chapter is also important because it enhances your understanding relating to macroeconomics. We are also going to see many new terminologies in this chapter. Today, we are going to cover two topics, meaning and features of budget, and the next topic is objectives of budget. Before starting the topic, let's have a small introduction about what the budget is. As every one of us is very aware that India is having mixed economy. It means not only the private sector but also government operates in our economy. Now, as we are going to talk about government budget only, we are going to discuss the things about government in this chapter. Now, what is the main aim of government? The main aim of government is to use the resource to the maximum and provide maximum welfare to the citizens. Now, to use the resource to the maximum and provide maximum welfare to the people, to the citizens of the country, requires huge amount of money. Now, from where the money is going to come? The government has to generate the revenue from various sources. See, there are various sources from where the government can generate the revenue. We are going to discuss in detail about all the sources in the upcoming topics. Now, government, in order to manage its revenue and expenditure, budget is prepared. So in short, why the budget is prepared? This is the answer. In order to manage the revenue and the expenditure, government prepares the budget. Now, the most important point here. It is the constitutional requirement to present the budget before the parliament. Before the budget comes to us, it is the constitutional requirement to present the budget before the parliament. Now, who prepares the budget? It is the Ministry of Finance who prepares the budget. The task of the budget preparation starts in the month of September. Now, as you have seen that the budget is to be presented before the parliament. Now, who presents the budget before the parliament? It is the finance minister who presents the budget before the parliament. In our country, Nirmala Sitharaman is a finance minister. Okay, let's start with the first topic, 10.1, meaning and features of budget. The meaning is here. Budget is a statement of estimates. It means the digits which are mentioned in the budget, or the revenues and the expenditure which are in the budget, are the estimated one, not the actual. Once again, budget is a statement of the estimates of government receipts and government expenditure. So what is in the budget? It is the government receipts and the government expenditure, not the actual one but the estimated one. During the fiscal year, what is fiscal year? It is the financial year. Financial year in India starts from April 1 to 31st March. Once again, the meaning. Budget is the estimated statement which shows government receipts and government expenditure during the fiscal year. Now, the features of the budget. The statement is the estimated statement, not the actual one. It is not the actual statement, it is the estimated one, because at the end of the year, the digits may be more or less. Now, the next feature. It is prepared annually. Now, as in the introduction, we have seen that it is the constitutional requirement to present the budget before the parliament. That is a third feature. Fourth, revenue and expenditure which are in the budget are planned according to the objectives of the government. keeping in view the government's objective, revenue and expenditure are planned. Now, last point, it impacts fiscal discipline and resource allocation. Now, what is fiscal discipline? Government tries to have the balance between government revenue and government expenditure. If there is no balance between government revenue and government expenditure, it will lead to excess of expenditure over revenue, which leads to inflation. So fiscal discipline is very important. It means, once again, balance between government revenue and government expenditure. So 5 features once again, everyone. Budget is estimated statement, not the actual one. Prepared annually. Constitutional requirement to present it before the parliament. Revenue and expenditure in the budget are planned according to the government objective, and it impacts fiscal discipline and resources are allocated accordingly. The next topic is the objectives of budget. Very important topic. The topic has been asked in exam many times. 5 objectives of budget we are going to discuss here. Let's start with the first one. As we all know, India is a country where distribution of income is very unequal, which means rich is becoming more richer and poor is becoming more poorer. Keeping that in mind, the first objective is related to that topic only. First point is reducing inequalities in income and wealth. The first objective of budget is to reduce the inequalities. Government tries to reduce inequalities of income. Now, how the government does this? The government does this with the help of fiscal instruments. Now, what are fiscal instruments? It's government revenue and government expenditure. Government revenue is tax and the government expenditure is subsidy. Subsidy, no doubt, is benefiting the people who avail it, but it is an expenditure to the government. Now, how the income distribution, which is unequal, the government tries to balance it? Let's see. With the help of fiscal instrument, of course. Now, what the government is going to do here? Government will impose more tax on rich people and also the goods consumed by them. Because of this, what happens? Their disposable income goes down. What is disposable income? Disposable income is the income which is left after paying the taxes. How the income of the rich people goes down? Because government is imposing more tax on them, and the goods which are consumed by them, the government is imposing more tax. So the disposable income comes down. Now, the next step what the government is doing is increasing the disposable income of poor by providing them free education, health and etc. What the government has done here? The government has reduced the disposable income of rich people and increased the disposable income of the poor people. So what the government has done here? The government is trying to maintain equalities by taking or charging more tax or taking more money from the rich people and giving it to the poor people in the form of subsidy or say education or health and etc. It is also known as distribution function. As the government alters or changes the income from one to another, it means from rich people to the poor people. That's our first objective, reducing inequalities in income and wealth. The next point, reallocation of resources. What do you mean by reallocation? Reallocation means changing the direction of resource from one use to another in a way that it has balance between the profit maximization and the social welfare. Once again, the first point in resource allocation, it means changing the direction of the resources from one use to another and having the balance between profit and the welfare. See, If private sector only is operating, it will think about profits only. Now, as India is mixed economy, government is also operating. The government not only thinks about social welfare, but government do earn income also, profit also. So government sector targets profit motive as well as the social welfare. The government thinks about social welfare too. Now how the resources are allocated, let's see. Certain goods which are injurious to health, government imposes heavy taxes on them. Say tobacco and wine and etc. Now certain goods which are socially desirable or useful, say necessity or something like that, are encouraged through subsidy. Example, khadi. Okay. What the government has done here, the government is imposing higher taxes on those goods which are injurious to health and giving it in the form of subsidy to those goods which are socially very useful. That is, resources are allocated. It is also known as allocation function. So this is our second objective. Our first objective was reducing inequalities of income, wherein we have seen the government charges more tax from the rich people and decreasing their disposable income and increasing the disposable income of the poor. In reallocation of resources, government tries to balance between profit maximization and social welfare. Okay, charging more taxes on injurious product and giving it in the form of subsidy, also known as allocation function. Now let's talk about third objective, economic stability. The third objective of budget is to maintain stability in the economy. Now how to maintain stability? Before starting the topic of stability, have a look here. Every country is facing this situation. When the country is in its peak position, it is known as boom. When it goes down, it is depression, and it starts recovery. So these are the phases. When the economy is at its peak, it is boom. It goes down, it's a recession. When country reaches the lowest point, is depression, and from there it starts recovering. Now, how to have the stability under this situation? Let's see. There are two market forces, demand and supply. It is because of these two market forces, demand and supply, trade cycle is operating in every economy. Now this is what the trade cycle is. Now what is the objective of the government? To bring stability. Budget solves this problem of inflation and deflation. This is inflation and deflation. Now how the government solves this problem? With the help of budget. Let's see. During inflation means on an average the price of the products are high. It is because people are having more money, they spend more, and it leads to inflation. Now what the government does during inflation? Government reduces the expenditure and increases the revenue. By doing so, once again, government reduces its expenditure, so less money will flow in the market, increases its revenue, so more money will come from the market. Ultimately, the money supply in the market reduces and inflation is corrected. Similarly, for deflation, what the government does? Government increases its expenditure, so more money will flow in the market, reduces its revenue, so less money will come to the government from the market. Ultimately, deflation is corrected. Once again, how inflation and deflation are corrected? Let's see. Government will reduce the expenditure and increase the revenue. By doing so, what will happen? Money supply in the market, which is more, will reduce, and during deflation, money supply is less in the market, so government will increase the money supply. How? Expenditure will increase and revenue will decrease. It is also known as stabilization function. This is our third point. Now fourth point, very easy, growth of economy. Now how the growth of the economy will be done? See, government will have new policies been implemented in the country which encourages people to save and invest more. If investment increases, these following things will automatically happen. See, once again, government encourages people to save and invest, which leads to capital formation. If more capital formation is done in the country, the production level will increase. Ultimately, national income of the country increases, and ultimately economic growth will be there. So once again, the topic, how the economy will grow. Government encourages for savings and investment. All the things will increase: capital formation, production, national income, and ultimately economic growth. The fourth objective of budget. Now last, economic growth by managing PSUs. PSUs means public sector units or public sector enterprises. There are certain enterprises which are being operated by the government, which are known as PSUs. Now government will interfere more in those sectors and will take certain steps which will lead to economic growth. The point is economic growth by managing PSUs. Government does economic growth by establishing PSUs. Government will establish PSUs which will ultimately lead to the growth of the country. Now whatsoever public sectors are established, they aim at social welfare. They will never think about profit maximization, they will think about social welfare, which leads or contributes more towards growth. So only 2 points in this topic. Government establishes public sector enterprises, and the main aim of public sector enterprises is to have social welfare. Now more the social welfare are done in the country, it contributes more towards the economic growth. Thank you. Hello everyone, this is our second session for the chapter Government Budget and the Economy. In the first session we have seen two topics, meaning and features of budget and objectives of budget. I hope all of you are clear with these two topics. Let's start our today's topic. The topic is components of budget. The topic is very important. Let's start. There are two components of budget: budget receipts and budget expenditure. Receipts are the incomes, estimated receipts of the government, and here estimated expenditure of the government during the whole fiscal year. Today we are going to discuss in detail about budget receipts only. Let's have a small understanding here, then we will go in detail. Pay attention everyone. There are two components of budget: budget receipts and budget expenditure. Budget receipts are again classified into two parts: revenue receipts and capital receipts. Let me tell you the definition first of all of revenue receipts and capital receipts. Both are the receipts of the government, the estimated receipts of the government. Then what is the difference? Revenue receipts are those estimated receipts of the government which do not affect the assets and liabilities of the government. But capital receipts are those estimated receipts of the government which affects the assets and liabilities. This is the major difference. Both are the receipts, but the receipts here in revenue do not affect the assets and liabilities, and the receipts in the capital receipts affects the assets and liabilities. Look at the examples. Say for example, tax is a receipt for the government. As the income from the tax do not affect the assets and liability of the government, it is revenue receipts. Similarly, non-tax receipts. Say for example, non-tax receipts, fines, penalties, fees, all that which we are paying to the government are the revenue receipts because it do not affect the assets and liabilities of the government. Now the capital receipts. Borrowings, if government borrow from some other country, it affects the assets and liabilities. Recovery of the loans, if the government has given loan to some country and if it recovers the loan, it again affects the assets and liability, and other receipts. These are the receipts which affects the assets and liabilities of the government, so they fall under the category of capital receipts. Now all of you, let's look in detail about the whole topic of budget receipts. In the next session we are going to talk about budget expenditure. Okay. Let's today talk about budget receipts, everyone. Let's start. The definition, first of all, of budget receipt, everyone. Budget receipts are the estimated receipts of the government during the fiscal year. See again, the important line, important word, estimated receipts. The government is estimating that during the whole fiscal year, government is going to earn X amount of receipts. The actual digits may differ. Once again, the definition, budget receipts are the estimated receipts of the government during the fiscal year. Now, the budget receipt is classified into two categories, revenue receipts and capital receipt. As discussed earlier, the difference between revenue receipt and capital receipt is, here the receipts are as such which do not affect the assets and liabilities of the government, and the capital receipts affects the assets and liabilities of the government. Now, let's first of all talk about revenue receipts. The definition, everyone, it is the same. These are the estimated receipts. All the receipts here will be estimated one only. These are the estimated receipts of the government during the fiscal year which do not affect the assets and liabilities of the government. For example, all the tax receipts and all the non-tax receipts which the government is getting during the whole fiscal year falls under the revenue receipt, because assets and liabilities are not affected in this case. Now, let's talk about tax receipts and non-tax receipts in detail.